The room went silent. Not the ordinary kind of silence that happens when a director shouts, "Cut." This was different. It was the kind of silence that seemed to swallow every sound around it. The cameras were still rolling. The lights were still burning. The crew was still standing behind the monitors. And yet, for one strange second, it felt as if there were only two people left in the entire world. Wang Yibo stood on one side of the room. Xiao Zhan stood several steps away. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The scene had been written as a simple confrontation. Two characters. One secret. One final question. A few lines of dialogue. Then the scene was supposed to end. But something about the atmosphere had changed. Nobody could explain exactly when it happened. Perhaps it was the moment Wang Yibo's character looked up. Perhaps it was the way Xiao Zhan's character stopped breathing for half a second before answering. Or perhaps it was that strange pause between them. The pause that lasted only a few seconds on screen but seemed to last forever in the minds of everyone who watched it. That was the moment. The moment fans would replay. The moment viewers would slow down. The moment people would analyze frame by frame. The moment that would eventually become one of those scenes people could remember years later without even remembering exactly what had happened before it. Because sometimes a scene doesn't become unforgettable because of what the characters say. Sometimes it becomes unforgettable because of what they refuse to say. And in this fictional story, that was exactly what happened. The director watched the monitor. His hand slowly lowered from his headset. Nobody moved. "Don't cut," he whispered. The assistant director looked at him. "But the scene is over." The director didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the screen. "No," he finally said. "It isn't." The first line had been delivered perfectly. Then came the second. Then the third. Everything was going according to the script. Until Wang Yibo's character asked the question that wasn't supposed to sound emotional. "Why didn't you tell me?" Xiao Zhan's character looked at him. The script called for an immediate response. Instead, there was silence. 1 second. 2. 3. The camera moved closer. Xiao Zhan didn't answer. Wang Yibo didn't look away. The silence became heavier. The crew could hear the faint hum of the lighting equipment. Someone shifted behind the monitor. Someone else whispered something. The director raised one finger. Nobody spoke. Then Xiao Zhan finally said, "Because I knew you would come looking for me." The words were quiet. Almost too quiet. But they landed like a thunderclap. Wang Yibo's expression changed. Only slightly. So slightly that someone watching casually might never notice it. His eyes narrowed. His jaw tightened. Then he took one step forward. Would that have been so terrible? Another silence. Xiao Zhan looked away. And that tiny movement became the most important part of the scene. Because it suggested something the dialogue never confirmed. Regret. Fear. Love. Betrayal. Maybe all four. Nobody watching could know for certain. And that uncertainty was exactly what made the fictional scene so powerful. The director finally shouted, "Cut!" The tension disappeared instantly. Or at least, it was supposed to. Crew members began moving. Someone adjusted the lights. Someone checked the camera. Someone laughed nervously. The assistant director looked at the script. "We got it." The director didn't respond. He kept staring at the monitor. "Did we?" The assistant director frowned. "What do you mean?" The director rewound the footage. Again. The scene played. Again. And again. He watched the same exchange 3 times. Then 5. Then 7. Finally, he leaned back. That wasn't in the blocking. What wasn't? The pause. The assistant director looked confused. Which one? All of them. Years later, fans in this fictional story would still argue about that exact scene. Some would say the power came from Wang Yibo's expression. Others would insist it was Xiao Zhan's silence. Some would claim the camera movement created the tension. Others would say the actors had somehow transformed ordinary dialogue into something that felt painfully personal. There would be endless theories. Slow motion edits. Reaction videos. Frame-by-frame breakdowns. Comment sections filled with arguments. Look at his eyes. No, look at the way he turns away. Did you notice the pause? That wasn't acting. He looked genuinely shocked. Watch it again. Listen to the breathing. And eventually, one question would appear again and again. Why does this scene still give people chills? The answer wasn't simple. Because the scene wasn't frightening. There was no monster. No explosion. No scream. No blood. No dramatic soundtrack forcing the audience to feel something. There was simply a conversation between two people who seemed to know that one sentence could destroy everything between them. And somehow, that was more terrifying. In the fictional story, the scene had originally been much shorter. The script contained only 2 pages. The characters were supposed to meet in an empty room. One character wanted answers. The other wanted to leave. They would argue. A secret would be revealed. Then the scene would end. Simple. Predictable. Almost forgettable. But something happened during rehearsal. The director asked Wang Yibo to play the scene colder. "Don't show everything," he said. Wang Yibo nodded. Then the director turned to Xiao Zhan. "You know he's lying to you. But you don't know why." Xiao Zhan nodded. Understood. The rehearsal began. The first attempt was good. The second was better. But during the third rehearsal, Wang Yibo's character reached the final line and stopped. He didn't say it. He simply looked at Xiao Zhan. The director stared at the monitor. Again. They repeated it. This time Xiao Zhan didn't answer immediately. The director said nothing. They continued. And that's when the scene changed. It stopped being about dialogue. It became about hesitation. About 2 characters standing on opposite sides of a truth neither wanted to face. About the terrifying moment when someone realizes the person they trusted most may have been hiding something from them. The scene suddenly had a heartbeat. And nobody wanted to lose it. Then came the famous fictional take. The cameras rolled. The room became silent. Wang Yibo entered the frame. Xiao Zhan was already there. Their eyes met. And for a fraction of a second, neither character knew what to do next. That fraction of a second became everything. Wang Yibo's character walked forward. "You knew." Xiao Zhan didn't answer. "You knew all along." Still nothing. "Why?" Xiao Zhan finally looked at him. "Because you would have tried to save me." Wang Yibo stared. "And you didn't want me to." Xiao Zhan swallowed. "No. Then what did you want?" A long pause. Xiao Zhan's voice became almost a whisper. "I wanted you to forget me." The room seemed to freeze. Wang Yibo's character took another step. Did it work? Xiao Zhan looked directly into his eyes. "No. That was it. That one word. No." The director didn't cut immediately. The camera remained on them. Wang Yibo didn't move. Xiao Zhan didn't move. Then Wang Yibo slowly turned away. And that was when the fictional scene became unforgettable. Because the audience could see the character trying not to break. His shoulders barely moved. His face remained controlled. But his eyes betrayed him. He was hurt. Deeply. And Xiao Zhan's character watched him walk away. He wanted to call him back. The audience could see it. But he didn't. He remained standing. Alone. The door closed. Cut. The director sat in silence. Nobody immediately celebrated. Nobody said, "Perfect." Nobody laughed. There was simply a strange quietness in the studio. Finally, one crew member whispered, "That was intense." Another answered, "Too intense." The director looked at the monitor. "Keep it." The assistant director nodded. "We'll use the take." The director shook his head. "No." He paused. "Use the whole thing." That fictional decision would later become one of the most talked about choices surrounding the production. Because the scene wasn't edited aggressively. There were no dramatic cuts every few seconds. The camera was allowed to stay. It allowed viewers to sit inside the silence. And that made the scene uncomfortable. In the best possible way. The audience wasn't being told what to feel. They were being forced to decide. Was the character lying? Was he protecting the other person? Was he afraid? Was he guilty? Was there something deeper beneath the words? Every answer created another question. And every question made people replay the scene. That is how a moment becomes viral. Not necessarily because everyone understands it. Sometimes a moment becomes viral because nobody can agree on what it means. The fictional internet exploded. Clips appeared everywhere. One video focused entirely on Wang Yibo's expression. Another zoomed in on Xiao Zhan's eyes. Someone slowed the scene down by 50%. Another added subtitles explaining every pause. Someone else removed the music. That version became even more haunting. Without the soundtrack, viewers heard the breathing, the footsteps, the slight movement of clothing, the faint room noise. And suddenly, the scene felt even more intimate. People began noticing details they had missed. One fan pointed out that Wang Yibo's character didn't immediately turn away. Another noticed Xiao Zhan's character appeared to inhale before saying no. Someone else noticed the tiny movement of his hand. Then came the theories. Thousands of them. Some were emotional. Some were ridiculous. Some were surprisingly convincing. But one theory dominated everything. Fans believed the characters had already said goodbye before the scene even began. The conversation wasn't their first goodbye. It was their last attempt to pretend they still had a choice. And once people saw the scene that way, everything changed. The scene suddenly became tragic. The first question, "Why didn't you tell me?" was no longer simply a question. It became, "Why did you decide to carry this alone?" The answer, "Because I knew you would come looking for me," became, "Because I knew you cared too much to let me disappear." And the final exchange, "Did it work?" "No," became something much bigger. It became the entire story compressed into two words. No, you didn't forget. No, you didn't escape. No, the connection wasn't gone. And that was why viewers couldn't shake it. But the fictional story contained another twist. Months after the scene was released, an interview supposedly revealed that the scene had almost been removed. The producers had originally considered it too slow. They wanted something faster. More dialogue. More action. More obvious emotion. But the director had refused. He argued that the silence was the point. "You can't make every emotional moment loud," he said. "Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones people remember." The producers eventually agreed. And they kept the scene. That decision changed everything. The fictional scene became a cultural obsession. Fans began using the phrase, "the silence scene." Whenever someone uploaded a clip, they didn't need to explain it. Everyone knew. 2 characters. 1 room. 1 question. 1 answer. 1 look. 1 goodbye. And a silence that somehow felt louder than shouting. But then something even stranger happened. Fans began watching the scene without sound. They wanted to see whether the emotions were still there. They were. Then they watched it without subtitles. Still there. Then they watched it in slow motion. Still there. Then they watched only Wang Yibo. Still there. Only Xiao Zhan. Still there. That was the strange power of the scene. It didn't depend entirely on dialogue. It depended on what happened between the words. And that is something many viewers don't consciously recognize. Human beings are incredibly sensitive to pauses. A pause can communicate uncertainty, fear, regret, love, anger, suspicion. Sometimes 1 second of silence can communicate more than an entire speech. That's what made this fictional scene so effective. Wang Yibo's character didn't say, "I'm terrified of losing you." He simply stood there. Xiao Zhan's character didn't say, "I still care about you." He looked away. The audience filled in the blanks. And once the audience becomes part of the storytelling process, the scene becomes difficult to forget. But there was another detail. A tiny one. The final glance. Just before the door closed, Wang Yibo's character looked back. It lasted less than a second. Most viewers missed it. But the people who caught it never stopped talking about it. Because that glance changed the meaning of the entire scene. He wasn't walking away because he didn't care. He was walking away because he cared too much. And Xiao Zhan's character knew it. Their eyes met one final time. Then the door closed. That was the last image. Black screen. No music. Credits. In this fictional universe, viewers didn't accept the ending. They wanted answers. Why did he leave? Why did the other character let him? What secret had been hidden? Did they ever meet again? Was the goodbye permanent? Was the entire conversation a lie? The production team refused to explain. And that refusal made the scene even more mysterious. Every unanswered question became fuel. Every theory became another reason to re-watch. Eventually, someone uploaded a behind-the-scenes fictional clip. It showed the studio after filming. The room looked completely different. The lights were being dismantled. Cables were everywhere. Crew members were packing equipment. The emotional atmosphere from the scene was gone. But the camera briefly captured the set before everyone left. The same chair. The same door. The same empty room. Viewers stared at it. It was just a set. Nothing more. Yet thousands of comments appeared. Why does this room feel creepy? Because you remember what happened there. I'm getting chills. And that was the strangest thing of all. The scene had transformed an ordinary room into an emotional landmark. Then came the fan edits. One editor placed the scene beside earlier moments from the fictional story. Suddenly, everything looked different. A glance from episode 1 seemed meaningful. A conversation from episode 3 seemed suspicious. A tiny smile from episode 5 suddenly looked tragic. The final scene became a key that unlocked everything that came before it. People began saying, "I didn't understand this scene the first time. Now I can't watch the earlier episodes the same way." That is the power of a carefully constructed emotional payoff. The audience doesn't simply watch the ending. The ending changes the meaning of the beginning. And then came the question everyone kept asking. Why does this scene still give fans chills? Maybe it is because there is something terrifying about watching two people who clearly care about each other choose separation. Maybe it's because nobody screams. Nobody fights. Nobody dramatically collapses. They simply stand there. And sometimes that is more painful. Because real heartbreak isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like someone staring at a closed door. Sometimes it sounds like someone saying, "I'm fine." Sometimes it is the decision not to turn around. The fictional director understood that. That's why he didn't add a dramatic soundtrack. He wanted the audience to hear the silence.